Gents, so what I got here in front of me are these Ramset 22 caliber powder rounds for like the Hilti guns, just for driving fasteners and whatever into concrete and metal. You just use this as a kind of a nail gun basically, and they're 22 cal. And if you look at the back, I don't know if I can get that to focus. This is a Super X, like Winchester Super X ammo. So they seem like they're 22 cal Winchester brass cases that are necked. So that could be a problem if you stick that into a real gun, because it might flare out and get stuck inside your chamber. And they're also short too, so they're not gonna fill out the chamber, and the powder and everything is gonna go everywhere, you know. So not where it's supposed to. And I'm not sure if these are black powder inside here. I think they might be black powder, but anyway, I'm gonna open up one, and I just want to see how much it weighs, like what kind of powder that they're using inside there, and I'm gonna shoot some rounds off and see what happens. It's supposedly a terrible idea to put this in a real gun. Even says so on the package, don't do it, but in the name of science, I'm gonna try it. And if it goes bang, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be atrociously loud, because if you just shoot a primer with no powder or anything inside there out of your 22, it's pretty loud. It's not as loud as like a full gunshot, but it's pretty darn loud. But if you pack that case up like I do with my A-Salt-Glock rounds, it just makes it like a tiny little firecracker pop, and it doesn't make a huge noise. So if I just shoot this straight out of the barrel, it's gonna make a huge noise probably, I'm sure. And this is a power level 4. I heard that these are probably terrible for your guns too, because they're actually stronger than an actual 22 LR. But there's no bullet inside there. The only thing I'm worried about is that necked portion kind of just snapping off and projectiles flying out the other end, like little brass shards, which is the same thing that can happen when you use regular blank rounds. They'll just kind of go flying out the other end. Well, when it uncrimps that tip, when the explosion goes off, some of those little brass bits can go flying as actual projectiles. So if that whole thing broke off as one cap piece, it would basically be like a bullet. So we'll see what happens, and I'm gonna weigh it and find out what's. I got it open, and if you're gonna do retarded stuff like me, do this at your own risk, because you can definitely hurt yourself pretty bad with one of these things. I mean, if that just spontaneously went off, like you went too far with the tool or pliers or whatever trying to open it up, you might accidentally set the primer off, and then kaboom, you can have powder everywhere, all over your face. But anyway, I got that open up enough, and you can't really see inside there too much, but actually the whole thing is pretty much filled with powder. So I'm gonna go ahead and dump it in the scale and see what happens. Let's see what happens. I got it zeroed, and wow, that's a really fine grain powder too. So that looks a lot different than standard gunpowder, like standard flakes. It looks more like crushed flakes almost, you know, like they're kind of irregular shaped. So maybe this is kind of factory seconds in the gunpowder factory. I don't know, but that doesn't look like regular powder. It's like a nice regular uniform shape, and we're at 2.6 grains. So I think the regular 22s that I was shooting had a 1.5 grains of powder in it. So this thing has a whole grain more powder than it, but that doesn't really say anything because I don't know what kind of powder that is. And some powder is totally different, and you just get more bang for your buck with different powder. Test fired out of my A-Salt-Glock. I had to bend the little pieces back in from the crimping on the tips just so I could chamber, but it fits in there fine. It just doesn't fill out the chamber all the way, so that way, I mean, it's gonna, whatever powder residues inside there, it's just gonna spit it all inside the chamber. You're gonna have to clean it up pretty good after. But I've been shooting hundreds of rounds of salt out of this thing already anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I don't really care that much about this barrel. I'll just go buy another one if this one breaks or gets corroded or whatever. But I've already put thousands of rounds of real 22 through this, and a whole mess full of salt, so I'm not too concerned with what the barrel is going to look like after this. But I got a bore scope. We'll go check it out later. It's just the primer itself, no powder inside or anything. Oh, didn't even make hardly a noise. This is the one I just fired that hardly made any noise when it came out. So I smelled it, and it smells kind of weird too. It doesn't smell like normal powder or normal primer material. It kind of smells like burnt plastic. I don't know if that was from the paint on the tip that kind of got lit up a little bit, but It smells more like burnt plastic rather than normal primers do. Now this is the one with the real powder inside. It's going to be atrociously loud, I think. I'm going to cover up my ears. Well, I won't be doing that again. That was extremely loud. That was louder than a regular gunshot for sure. So it sounded more like a 9mm going off or something like that. But this is what it looks like after. And you can see how the pieces that are crimped are just kind of separated, so it'd be easy for those little petals to kind of go flying out. So here they are next to, well, it's next to a 22 LR shell that I just I removed the bullet on that one and shot that one too. But this, they're like the same size, you know, so it's just the same thing. I'm pretty sure what they're doing is using just a blank crimper, because that's what I was gonna buy. The Hornady sells a blank crimper set that works from anything from 22s to 45s. But I'm not sure if it's going to work with a 22 LR, but it would produce the same kind of crimp as that right there. So that was my goal, is to kind of crimp it like that and put the salt on top of the powder char. I don't even need to take the bore scope out, but look at that right there. You can see how nasty the inside of that looks. It's just kind of like black powdery stuff inside there. I don't know if that's salt, but I shot maybe like 50 rounds of salt through this thing right before that anyway too, so it's not really any kind of good indication. But the rifling's still fine. Chamber is just super durable.